You need to sell some of them. You're wasting all your time and money on models. Paint what you have.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Model Club TV, Episode 7. Yes.
Special effects, 7.
That's some special effects right there. That's all we can afford. I always say this, but everything I read going into creating podcasts, if you get past Episode 7, you can kind of consider yourself successful because most of them fail before that. And I think I said this last time because we were looking forward to this one. So if we have Episode 8, we're doing better than most podcasts. And wow, what an adventure it is. Anyway, as always, my co-host, Scott Johansson. How are you, sir?
I'm great.
Really? Great?
Sure. It's the best day ever.
Wow. Okay. We are going to have a short episode today because we had an interview. This is an interview show with Phil Kupka, and it went really long. So we're going to keep our part a little small today. I think it's probably how it's going to go for most of our interview shows. We don't have a lot to talk about here in the beginning anyway. There is some things, a couple things. But yeah, this is a great interview. So
this interview is long enough to be Episode 7 and 8.
That's true.
So,
actually, that is 100% true. So
maybe next time we'll come on and I'll be going Episode 9.
I think we may lose some listeners this week if it is too long. So I'm just kidding. It's a great interview. Phil's a great guy, and we look forward to sharing that with everybody. As far as news and reviews, got anything, Scott? Let's start with news.
News. I'm thinking, but I don't think I have anything.
Well, that's fine because again, it's going to be a long episode. So
yeah, and it seems like we just filmed the last one, so
it does. They're coming quicker and quicker.
Yeah, it's so. I'm sorry, I've got nothing. But I will say,
disappointment. Last week you had your homework done. This week,
yeah, I have some stuff coming in the mail soon, so I'll have some stuff I can do a quick review on.
Okay. I have a news bit, like one little news thing. It just happened today, and I saw on Facebook today. This was today. It just popped up when I was scrolling. This Godzilla kit, and I absolutely blown away by it. I really I need this kit, and the hard part is, it's from Ryo is his name, I think, and it's gorgeous. It's a 54 Godzilla done like it's realistic. Like it's gorgeous looking. I don't know if it's going to be a pre-paint. I don't know if it's a one-off. I don't know if it's anything. I sent him a message to get some more information. It's all in Japanese. It's from a blog post or a blog site that's also all in Japanese. I used Google Translate to try and get in touch with them. So if I get any more information on this by next episode, I'll share it. But I think this Godzilla kit is just stellar. Like, it's like one of the best 54 looking Godzillas I've ever seen. So,
and I have to agree. It's pretty cool.
That's really cool. I mean, that's one I'd go in your house and steal from you if you had it, I think, like that other one I want. But the other thing I got is in the mail. I got this thing. It's called a Kaipine or Kaipine. I think it's Kaipine, and it's a D&D monster. And somebody I follow on Instagram was painting one of these up, and she did a really good job with it. And I was just wondering where it came from. I didn't know how big it was, and it is from a company called Boss Monster Minis, and he has a shop on Etsy. And if you want to go and pick that up, and it's all 3D printed miniatures. And this is one of the first. I'm just going to hold it in the camera. It's about that big. It's 3D printed. You can get it in 2 different poses. It was only $25, and there's a ton of cool stuff on his site. There's some dragons. There's some other fantasy miniatures, and there's options in the printing. And it didn't take that long to get. Really, really, really cool thing. A Kaipine. I'm going to link to. I put a out of the box review on my YouTube channel, so I'll have that down in the comments I'll have that down in the, what is it called? What do we call it? Comments? Description? Description. Down in the description below. I got to get used to this YouTube lingo. It's horrible. I'm too old for this. So that'll be in there. Boss Monster Minis on Etsy. And it's, I dropped something. His name is Tobias Brunner, and like great sculpture, really cool.
How is that 3D print? Do you have to clean up? Does it look?
There's a little, and I talk about that in the review a bit. There is a little bit of cleanup to do, but not much at all. I don't know if I broke the antler or if it came like that, but there's a little nub missing. It's very, very fragile. There is a little bit of detail loss based on the printing from the original file, I think, to that. But yeah, check out the review that's up there. It's a great little mini, and he has tons of really cool stuff on there. So Boss Monster minis. That's as far as news and reviews. Workbench. I'm not even going to put the little thing in there because, again, we're trying to keep this short today. But as far as Workbench goes, I got back onto live streaming this week, finally, working on my Ghost. And I built a lot of miniatures, plastic miniatures, in the last 2 weeks since we did our last show. It's been fun just building and scraping mold lines. But have you built anything? You broke anything they had to fix this week?
No. Well, yeah, I did actually. While we were filming the last episode, this is one of the figures that's up on my shelf, and I noticed he was like leaning way forward like this, like he's gonna fall off. And what happened is, years ago when I got him, I wanted to see if I could take him apart, so I took the legs off. And what happened is he has started to get a lean forward. And no, his arms are posable, so we fix those so they look right.
Is it vinyl?
It's vinyl, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably, yep.
So, and then it was hot here and we didn't have the air on, so I'm wondering if that didn't contribute. Yeah. So I think what I'm going to have to do is put some epoxy glue in the bottom and hold them a little straighter so I can put them back up there.
Yeah.
The goal was someday to repaint them anyway.
You have something to build and make, and Yeah,
sure. Because
update time. Did you work any more on your Tiny Terror? Okay, so
no. And for those that I promised the foam review this week, I didn't get to it, but I will get to it next week. I'm hoping I can get set up somehow so that I can do it right up there in my work area. But if I can't, I will take pictures and do it down here. So,
all right, I'm holding it to it. We do have one thing to talk about. A Dune trailer came out for the new Frank Herbert's Dune movie. Do you have an opinion?
What's Dune?
Not Doom. Dune.
Dune. I said, what's Dune? Dune. What's Dune? No, I actually know what Dune is. As a teenager and younger child, my brother read all the Dune books.
My brother has read all the books too. Look at that.
I don't even own any of the Dune books.
I don't either.
So I'm not familiar with it. But for your sake, I watched the trailer.
Okay. I know just from games and movies, the original movie and some of the other ones, that's my knowledge base. I have not read the books. So I'm probably having people yell at me right now. And you.
They're going to book shame us. Now
we're going to get book shamed. We're going to get book shamed. We are. So the trailer, what'd you think? Movie coming out.
Well, it was interesting enough that it was more interesting than the Batman trailer. I'll tell you that.
Oh my God. You know what? I agree with you.
So, it's interesting enough that I may give it a try.
Yeah, it's intriguing. Well, yeah. And you asked me if I knew what the music was, and of course I knew what it was. I knew right away. I didn't have to ask anyone, and I knew it was Pink Floyd Eclipse, a cover.
You're such a
See, I'm good at lying.
Okay.
I had no idea what the song was.
Whoop.
I don't know any Pink Floyd songs.
So it's an
Jamie is going to be really mad at me.
Okay, even if you're not a fan of Pink Floyd, it's an iconic piece of music.
Where would I have heard it?
I don't know. On a radio that didn't play "Kill Your Mother, Kill Your Father" music. I don't know. Whatever.
Anyway, yeah.
They worked it into the trailer though, really nice.
Yeah, it was
performing it. I think someone said somewhere I read today it was Hans Zimmer.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And but it was cool. The part I really thought was cool, and I know what the sandworm is just because the sandworm was always on the cover of the books and
Yeah.
things. And at the end of the trailer, they showed the sandworm coming out of the sand, and that looked really cool. I thought that looked really, really cool.
Yeah,
And
it did.
so
I'm intrigued. I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, so I don't know that I'll go to the theater to see it, but I think I will.
I don't know if I'm going to go to the theater ever again now that I have a good TV and good speakers. And you know my experience with theaters. So if I don't have to go, I don't want to go. I tend to have arguments at the theater, so we'll stop there.
Because he talked through the whole movie.
Anyway,
Kids throw popcorn at him and all that.
Anyway, we hope you enjoy this interview with Phil Kupka. We go over a ton of stuff. He's got some great information in there, a great history of him as a modeler, where he came from, who he's helped, how he's inspired some iconic kits, and even launched one of the iconic kits, I think. But yeah, it's a great interview. Goes a little long, but we hope you stick around and listen through the whole thing, and we'll talk to you after the interview.
And just let me interject real quick. I've known Phil since 2003. And what's funny is the amount of people that I do know in this hobby that have been around forever. And it kind of took me that long to know Phil. And you would think that I would have known Phil earlier than I did. But
well, a lot of people don't like to admit they know you. So
there's that. But I didn't know him.
Okay.
You know.
All right. Enjoy the interview. We'll see you afterwards. I think we brought Phil on today, Phil Kupka, because it made it a lot easier than trying to read an email. So this is, I think, our start with Phil. Phil, thank you so much for coming to Model Club TV.
It's my pleasure to be here, except that I have to put up with Scott.
Now finally, someone else feels my pain. Totally. Seriously, I first want to thank you for everything you have done so far for us. You're one of the few people that actually sends us emails, and I know I kid about it a little bit, but they're awesome. Every email you have sent, I have loved to read. It's just hard to try and translate it to this and get it up on here. So I thought, let's get you on here and just talk it out here. You can still send emails after this, but
I was going to say, since I'm on this one, do I have to write you an email?
No, you don't. No, it's okay.
I will anyway.
Okay.
I'll tell you how great I looked.
Awesome. So seriously, thank you for coming.
Because we're not gonna.
Thank you, Scotty. Scotty McCracken.
So awesome. Yeah. First, the other thing I want to get to first, there's people might be wondering, where do you live?
I live in a small town in Oregon called Willamina. It's about halfway between the Oregon coast and Portland.
Okay. So that's what I want to talk about real quick. Are you okay? Are you safe? There's a lot of fires going on, and people, when they see this over the weekend or next week, are probably going to be wondering if you were okay. So everything good?
Yeah. We haven't got any fires close to us, but we had our grandson stay with us last night because he's got a lot of health problems. And our daughter, where she works in Salem, which they've been hit with a lot of smoke.
Okay.
They closed her business early, and she came out here, and she's going to spend the night with us too. But it's very smoky. I mean, it's it probably doesn't look as bad as the photos and film that they've showed of San Francisco, where it's red.
Yeah.
But it's smoky here, really smoky.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. I hope it stays that way, and I hope everyone's good.
Me too. But we're keeping an ear on where the fires are and everything. So in case they come close, we're gonna pack it up and get out of Dodge.
That's a lot of stuff to pack up behind you.
Well, take a look at it now, guys.
That's a finger cross. This could be the last time you ever see Phil's collection. Oh man, that would be this would be the most depressing start to an interview. Anyway, okay. Who do you have there with you? Who's our other guest?
This is my color commentator. It's the remembered prisoner from Castle Marie. Or is it Marais?
We had this argument. I say Marais. Scott says it wrong.
I'll
so
defer to the old guy. Whatever the old guy says.
I agree.
There you go.
I agree. Old guys with white beards, you have to pay attention to.
It's been Castlemare as long as I can remember. But
Yeah.
Anyway, so Phil, you like model
Yes, sir.
kits, huh?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Sure.
How'd
Yeah,
you
my
get
wife
started?
said- somebody asked my wife once, "Do you tolerate his hobby?" And she said, "Yeah, I like it because it keeps him out of the bars."
You know what? I wish that were true for me. Actually,
And-
this virus kept me out of the bars, so
And my favorite story, one of my favorite Phil stories, is the first time I met his wife. I was at my mutual friend Kurt Krause's house, and Phil came down. It was the 4th of July, and they were having fireworks on the beach. So Phil came down with his wife Diane for the fireworks and to spend the day. And so Diane comes in, and we're talking for about an hour, and Phil and Kurt are talking about model kits, and Diane just kind of looked at me and she said, "Are you one of them?" And I had to put my head down in shame and go, that's me. I'm one of them. Yeah. So,
oh man. Well, she's a good sport. It seems she even set up your camera for you tonight. Got you set up. That's awesome.
He did because I'm technology unaware.
Yeah, Jamie would tell me get lost, I think. So you got a good one there.
Jamie may tell you that anyway.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, it's coming, I think. So how'd you get started? First model. What was your first model?
Well, my very first model, as I recall, was some kind of a rocket. If it was a Hercules rocket or something like that, and it had this little platform that you mounted it on. Didn't paint it or anything. I was worried about keeping the glue off my hands and on the model. But the first figure model that I had back in, I think it was 63, for Christmas, my folks bought me the long box Aurora Frankenstein monster. And oh wow, that was cool. And my mom helped me put it together and paint it.
That's fantastic.
Mom's
doing stuff. That's awesome. Back to the model for a second. Was it just a model kit or a flying rocket that actually?
No, it was a model kit. It was probably
Okay.
like so big. It's pretty
Gotcha.
small.
Okay. So the long box.
Was that age they hadn't invented flying yet.
Yeah.
You said it. I did not say that. So, we'll let you guys fist fight this later.
I promise Phil I'd bust and chop a little bit here.
Here's a weird question. Do you still have that model kit?
Oh no.
See, I still have
I
my
think
first one.
the only model or part of a model that I have from when I was a kid building kits was I have one of the Revell Beatles George Harrison heads. And I don't think I have the whole head. I think I might just have the front half of it. And it's painted that gloss flash and gloss brown. But I think that's the only original thing that I have left.
That's at least you have something. Scott, do you have a first model kit you built or anything that long?
We're still waiting for that.
Never built a kit.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. What a dumb question.
You should know better than that, Jason.
Yeah. Oh my God. So you got that for Christmas, I think, right? Was it 63? Yep. Okay. And your mom, did your mom help you build more models after that? Was she hooked or was she like, oh, forget it?
No. She said, well, he's an artistic little kid. We'll let him go on. What I think, I'm not sure if it was that same Christmas, but my older brother got Dracula. And speaking of that Dracula, there's a lot of you remember the Aurora model contest that they had nationwide. Well, we lived in Minnesota in a suburb of Minneapolis called Crystal. And the local contest, that Aurora contest, was at a Target store. And I entered the Creature from the Black Lagoon, and I don't remember, I put it on a piece of plywood that I painted green, and it wasn't real good. But my brother, my mom.
Wait a minute, time out. 1 second. There's Target stores back then?
Yeah.
Is that a Minnesota thing?
Well, Dayton Hudson, it's a subsidiary of Dayton Hudson.
Okay. I did not know this. I thought it was a new thing. All right. Was it like our venture? Did you guys have ventures?
What's a venture?
There you go. Scott, you know a venture. Scott, we have venture, right?
A venture is the ship in the original King Kong was called the Venture.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Everything goes back to King Kong. Venture was like a Target back then for us. It was black and white striped stores.
I will
Just
say,
me?
Jason, that
Just
before
me?
Target was here, when I was in California in like the late 80s,
Yeah.
I saw Target there. And I was like, oh, this is a pretty cool store. And it was, like you said, it was like what we had here called Venture.
Okay.
And then it,
Well,
And
yeah,
we're
so
not even that far away. All right. Sorry. Model contest at Target. I'm sorry.
well, before I continue, speaking of you guys' Chicago area, do you remember that show?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yep.
We remember that show. I got a gold and a silver at that show. It's my one.
Did you?
Yeah. I also saw porn stars talking in front of little kids about doing horrible things. So, resin heads. that's kind of how it was. What a mess.
Anyway, back to
Yeah.
the model contest.
Yeah.
So anyway, my brother, he built the Aurora Dracula, and my mom had given him this plastic jewelry case that opened up, the long ways,
Uh-huh.
and it had purple felt, or not felt, it was a cloth interior. Well, he took the customizing kit and he made a skeleton with the pieces that you could make out of it, and he fashioned this little dagger and put it into between the ribs, and he won second place there.
That's awesome.
And he got this vacuum formed thing with Frankenstein on the front saying second place winner of the Aurora monster contest, whatever. And then he got a subscription to Famous Monsters of Filmland, and he got a couple model kits. That was really a big deal.
What a great time to be alive. Like, there was nothing like that when I was a kid.
And
Not
do you
at
know
all.
how much that vacuum form thing is worth right now?
Boy, you see them on
Yeah.
eBay.
They go for
People
like,
want big ones.
How much are they worth? They'll only be hanging. Like, what was that?
like in the $500 range, I think I've
Really?
seen them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I've
Or
seen
I've
them
seen them
listed more than
I
that.
don't know what they-
When you're getting-
yeah, I don't know what they actually sold for, if they did sell for that, but yeah.
Hey, Scott, back to your peanuts thing. Look, I actually have a Charlie Brown mug. Sorry. Anyway.
I don't talk about your peanuts.
Sorry. Leave my peanuts alone. So did your brother
That's the short
still,
story, right?
did your brother like continue building models, or was that like the heyday and he was done?
Here's a copy of the certificate that you got too.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Years ago, Jason, on eBay, there was a guy that must have owned a hobby shop or something. And he had a box, and it was the box that they sent the hobby shop of all of that stuff. So it had entry forms. It had, like Phil just showed you, it had a stack of them, had all 3 vacuum form things. And now I'm talking, this is 15 years ago. And it was in Kankakee, of all places, which is south of us, Phil, about 40 minutes.
Mhm.
I think the thing sold for over $1,000 back then
Wow.
for the whole thing. But I mean, he had the box that came in and everything.
Mhm.
And I don't know who bought it or who ended up with it, if it's a collector that's out there, but it was cool seeing it like as the hobby shop would have gotten it, and it was everything. So
Did
But
did
back
your
to
brother
your
keep
question,
building
Bruce.
models, or was that it? Like,
Yeah, well, all of my brothers, I had 3 brothers, one older than me and 2 below me. The older one, he built a few more, like he built the Wolfman and a couple other monsters, but he also built like the white-tailed deer and maybe a couple cars or something, but he wasn't really that into it. My younger brother, he built the Hunchback and maybe a couple cars. He got into armor a little bit. He built a couple tanks. Then my youngest brother, the only model I remember him building was a 1/25th scale Grumpy's Toy, which was a pro stock for drag racing.
okay.
My youngest uncle on my mom's side, bought all my brothers a big Frankie. Well, you know who had to build it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But
got
after that, my brothers, they never really got into building models.
Cool. So it was a model building family at one point, and then you just kind of took over, huh?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
let me ask you a question, because I think you're one of the first people I've ever spoken to that had a big Frankie back then, or saw big Frankies back then.
Mhm.
So it's my understanding, and the Aurora guys out there will probably say, well, yeah, you dummy. They were never cellophane sealed. They were just taped. The box top was kind of taped to the bottom. That it didn't have the Aurora seal that the cellophane thing. Do you remember? Or is it?
Let me see if I can remember back then in the 60s. No, I don't remember. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. How about the paint that came with it? Did you use it?
Did it come with paint?
Yeah, it came with 3 bottles of paint and a paintbrush. And
Really? Well,
Check out the
I
big
just
brain on
remember that
Scott. When does this happen? What the heck's going on?
I just remember the chain was this kind of gold colored stuff, and it was different than the rest of the styrene.
yeah, and you had to paint it, or you had to build it link by link.
Yep, that sucked.
Wait, really? That's horrible. Oh my God.
I don't know if the reissue is like that. I think it is, but you had to,
Yeah.
Well, that's like, I have the ghost chain sitting right here, and every other link is solid. And I was like, man, do I have to drill those out? And I'm like, no, forget it. Anyway, back to chains. It's
okay.
we're all
So
over the place.
where'd you guys put all these models back in the day, Phil?
Yeah.
Okay, the first house that this is the second house, but the first house that we lived in was in North Minneapolis, and I was just a wee lad, like 1 or 2 years old. But when I started building models, we built them in the basement, and we had window wells. For those of you who don't know what a window well is,
Got one of those. I had those.
it's access to the outside. If you have a fire, you have a tough time squeezing out of there. But it's we had shelves. My dad had finished off the basement, and so we had shelves, right where the window was. But those filled up pretty fast. But then the second house that we lived in, it was a 4-story split level. So you had like two levels here and then 2 levels here, and there was stairs in between. Well, my brother and I had a basement in the first sub level, and we had the cinder blocks were about maybe 4 or 5 feet up, and my folks capped that off with some oak and then stained it, and it ran the full length of 2 walls. So we had plenty of room to put our models.
That's awesome.
It was cool.
Built-in
Didn't
shelves.
have to buy any display cases.
Yeah. The best thing about window wells, dead frogs.
Yeah, and salamanders.
Yeah. See, we didn't have salamanders.
Oh,
Just dead frogs.
yeah. I
I
suppose
would
it
have
was
loved some
too
dead
easy.
salamanders for my jars.
He has jars of dead stuff in his house, Phil.
So you're just jealous, man. You're just
Yeah, I'm
jealous.
jealous. I wish I had jars of dead stuff.
Where were you buying all your model kits back then?
There was a pharmacy called Medical Center Pharmacy, and in the basement of it, there was a Schwinn dealership, but they also had like slot cars and radio control stuff and model kits and all that kind of cool hobby stuff. They even had slot car race tracks that you could bring a slot car and show off your abilities. But yeah, that's where I bought. I think that's up until and including the Creature and the Mummy, which came out at the same time. And I bought all my testers and my PLA. Is that how you pronounce that paint? PLA? PLA?
I think so.
Yeah, they were the little
Yeah.
jars of
Yeah,
enamel.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
I remember Pactra, but I don't remember Pla. I remember Pactra. And I had that weird
Yeah,
bottle.
Pacta too. Yeah.
I had
I
packed.
forgot
Yeah.
about that. Yeah. But that's where I bought my stuff. And then one of the first malls in Minnesota was called Brookdale Mall. And they had a hobby store in there called Gagers, which was later bought out by a hobby craft corporation called Triarco. But anyway, I remember going to Gagers whenever we went to that mall and going in and seeing what new Auroras were on the shelves, or
That's
what
awesome.
Revell kits, or what weirdos
Yeah.
or things. It's just like heaven. And Kurt Kraus and I, every once in a while, we have this dream about going into a hobby store and seeing all these kits that Aurora never made, and filling shopping carts with them. And we could never get up to the cash register with them. We'd wake up.
That's a horrible nightmare. That's a dream and a nightmare all at the same time.
And who was buying these kits for you back then, Phil? Was it
buying
Mom?
them. I was
Okay.
buying them. I saved my meager allowance. Mom would pay me. We had a cement pad in front of the garage, and if I swept all the gravel and stuff off that, I get 50 cents. Or if I washed the kitchen dining room floor, I get 50 cents. So I was able to buy an Aurora kit for 98 cents, by doing two duties.
That's awesome. Well, you had Woolworths there too?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I
We
love
bought,
that. That's I love that store.
I think, no, it was a Kresge's, I think that we had. We had a Kresge's and a Snyder Drug.
Okay.
But the Kresge's is where I got the 420 kit.
Yeah, I remember my grandma. I used to go to Woolworths with my grandma in Berwyn all the time. I remember trying to get model kits and action figures. Berwyn. Yep. That was the coolest thing I bought for my third grade. Third grade, I dressed up as Svengoolie for Halloween, and I bought a rubber chicken in Berwyn for my costume. It was awesome.
So did you use shoe polish to blacken your eyes?
Yeah, I had black. I had a top hat, suit, scarf, all that stuff. It was fantastic. It was so cool. I wish I still had a picture of that. I think I do somewhere. I got to find it. But
speaking of Woolworths and your grandma,
yeah,
I really loved staying with my grandparents. And almost every time that I would stay there on Saturday, we'd feed Grandpa his breakfast, and then he'd go off to work. And then we do a little housework. Then we go down to the corner and we'd hop the bus down to downtown Minneapolis. And we do our things. And one time she said, "Philip, would you like a model kit?" I said, "Oh, please, Grandma, please, but no monster models." Okay, Grandma. So we went at the Woolworths. Their toy department was in the basement downtown Minneapolis. We went there, and they had the Black Bear and Cubs. So he bought me that.
Well, that's a rather peaceful kit.
Yeah, and as far as records, when I was a little older, she wanted to buy me a record for Christmas, and she told my mom, "I'm not going to buy him none of that rock and roll stuff." So I got The Wondrous World of Sonny and Cher.
Oh man! Oh no! It could. I mean, that's like the worst you could get.
Hey, I like that album.
Oh darn it!
I upgraded to a CD too.
Oh man! Hey, that's a good memory though. That's.
So you're talking to a guy there that didn't recognize the Pink Floyd.
We didn't talk about that yet. We didn't talk
from the Dark Side of the Moon. Okay, which is like only one of the most iconic albums of all time, and he couldn't even recognize that music. So
So I. Yeah, I didn't know what song it was. Jamie had to tell me. She loves Pink Floyd. Like, I have Pink Floyd stuff hanging upstairs. I don't know anything about Pink Floyd. So when I heard that song in the trailer, I had no idea. And so I looked it up.
All that, I like to call it "Kill Your Mother, Kill Your Father" music.
No, I don't. No,
kill your mother, kill your father, kill your mother, kill your father.
It's not true. It's not true. It's not true. It's kill your daughter, not your. I'm just kidding.
I know about Pink Floyd.
Hey, he knows more than I do, which is not a surprise.
I know a little bit more about the Grateful Dead, though.
I don't know anything about them either. So, anyway, but Woolworths, did they have pets in your Woolworth? That's what I remember. There was fish and parakeets.
Yeah, and you get to that area and it stunk.
Yeah, I remember that's one of.
Every once in a while, you'd see them fishing out the dead fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Myers still has fish in it. I think Walmart does too, right?
Yeah.
I think. I don't know.
Does it? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Back to models. You build other things? Was it just figure kits or other things?
Oh yeah, I built model cars during my early teen years. There was a friend of my brother's who said, "You want to go to Minnesota Dragways to watch the drags at the drag strip?" And I said, "Sure." So I grabbed my Instamatic camera and hopped in his van. We went up there, went to the far end of the strip and snuck in through the woods so we wouldn't have to pay the $3 entry fee. And I started taking pictures. And, wow, this is really, really cool. And so I updated to a 35 millimeter camera, but it wasn't a single lens reflex. And I couldn't really get good pictures. So I bought a single lens reflex and then got a telephoto zoom. Boy, I was really up there. And then I got a Super 8 movie camera.
Yeah.
Oh, that was cool. But yeah, I built a lot of cars, and I tried to build realistic funny cars. And so I'd make my own decals and all this other stuff. And as soon as I'd finish it, some model company would come out with that car with all the decals and everything ready for you.
The worst.
About 3 or 4 times.
But you still made your own. That's a million times better.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Did Did you gravitate still though more to the figures, the Finks, the weirdos, stuff like that? I mean, was that still where your heart was, or were you moving on at that point?
For that couple of years, I was strictly building cars because I hung out with a couple other kids that built cars. But
Mhm.
then, like I said in the Monster Mile review, episode 195.
Oh yeah, please
which
check out
features-
Rob Manson's. Yes, Phil, you
But-
go. I want you to do the plug. Plug Rob. Someone
Yeah.
else besides us.
Rob Madison, Monster Model Review, did a episode on me and my Outer Limits fascination. Check it out. It's episode 195. And personally, I think Rob did the best job on that episode.
Rob, can we talk about Rob for a second while he's gone?
Sure.
He's awesome.
Like he's
Like-
dead.
Well, I know he's not here. He can't hear us yet. We'll do that. Rob's amazing. I love that guy. He's one of the nicest human beings on the planet. There's not he's not like Scott trying to ruin everyone's day, and he's just he's out there for the right reasons. Oh wait, this is
He's
new
another
Scott.
guy, that would give you the shirt off his
Yeah,
back.
absolutely. If you can't find it, you can link through this channel over to his. We got him linked on ours. Friend of the show. We love him. He's going to be a guest at some point for sure. Yeah, Rob's great. Love him. He does great
The
stuff.
odd thing is, I met Rob through my friend Kurt, who also introduced me to Phil.
Okay.
Mhm.
This Kurt guy, he seems to be the center of all evil.
He's the center of something. He's the center of something. Yeah.
What magazines were you reading back then? What was the in thing?
Well, of course, Mad Magazine and Cracked, not Cracked.
Yeah. Oh, I like Crack magazine.
Famous Monsters, of course. But then I came across an issue of, what was it called? Model and Toy Collector, or Model and Figure Collector, whatever it was. And I saw that, I read an article about how people were collecting these old Aurora Monster models. I said, I don't see them in the stores. So I read this article, and it said that they're finding them in the weirdest places. So one time we went over into Wisconsin. We were camping just out of Taylor's Falls, Wisconsin. So I went into town one day, and they had a hardware store. So I thought, I'm going to go in there and see if they got one of their little toy departments. And I went in there. Sure enough, they had a square box glow Wolfman and the Hunchback.
That's awesome.
Latched them right up. And that's what started me collecting figure kits again. And then
What
after
year was that roughly, you think, that you
that
got
would
back in?
okay, we were in our second house. That would be the late 70s, early 80s. Like 78, 79. Well, wait a minute. Our daughter was born in 80, so it was before that. I would say 78, 79, something like that.
Well, I know Model and Toy. Model. It turned into Model and Toy, and I think it was originally Model Figure Collector.
Mhm.
And I received my first issue of Model Figure Collector,
Mhm.
which was issue 1, and it was a little thing.
Yeah.
In about 1985. That's when I got my first issue of that.
Mhm.
About
This
issue
guy,
6
you
or
and your-
7, it morphed into Model and Toy Collector.
It's really been around that long? So,
That was
Well,
Model and Toy Collector.
wow,
Way
I did not
before
think
the
that.
internet.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was Toy Shop,
Yep, Toy Shop.
a newspaper type thing. You
Yep.
could,
I had
like
a
it.
bunch of those. Yeah, I used to get that.
Yeah. And then there was the John Green list. You guys
What's
ever
that?
get
No,
on John Green's mailing list?
no.
So you sent me a picture, Phil, of John Green's mailing list number 108.
Yeah,
My
Mhm.
first John Green list was number 6.
really.
And I found it in an issue of Fangoria in the classifieds. So I sent him send me your list.
Mhm.
And the list you had prices. And when I started out with John Green, he wouldn't give you prices. You had to write him for prices.
Yeah.
He would literally send you your letter back,
The
With
whip out the
Mike
telegraph too while you're at it, like ding, ding,
and
ding.
it would say sold or whatever. And then for 50 cents, he'd make a photocopy of the kit if you wanted to see a photocopy, and it would be a black and white photocopy.
Oh my
And
god.
then, so if he still had it, then you'd have to get a money order and send it to him and hope he didn't sell that kit between that. You couldn't call him either.
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember money orders? Like, when's the last time anyone's done a money order for anything?
Well, yeah. So again, this was just how you did things. And again, I know for a fact this was like 84, 85 when I started. And John Green, I had list number 6.
Well, I had a lot of other lists, but this is just the one that I saved.
Right. And the one you saved had the prices on. Because after a while, I think he got so much shit about not having prices on it that he finally gave that out, and he finally gave his phone number out. So like he'd hold a kit too. Like if you sent him a down payment, he'd hold a kit for 30 days. And I think I only spoke to the man himself one time.
It's like the dark ages.
Yeah, it was pretty weird.
It's like
Actually,
did you guys get the Puffin stuff? That's the one I was on. That's the Puffin stuff catalog.
I never got their list. I always waited for that to come out though in the new magazines.
Yeah, I would get the thing in the mail while I was down in ISU. And it was like, oh, the greatest day. And he would look at the same piece of paper 100 times trying to figure out what I wanted to buy. And wow, time before the internet. Strange. Yeah. Very strange.
I can't remember if it was in Model and Toy Collector or whatever, but there was an ad for, and in the ad, they had pictures of the Sakuda quarter scale and a couple Billikens in there. I go, wow, look at the likenesses on there. That really beats out the Auroras. So anyway, I wanted to find out about these garage kits. And anyway, we were vacationing in California, and my wife's oldest sister is who we went to visit. And she didn't live too far away from John Green. So I called John up and I said, John, would you mind if I came by your place and saw what you had and maybe get some stuff for you? Yeah, come on over. So I drove over there, go up to the front door, and the screen door was closed, but the inside door was open. I rang the doorbell and I waited. All of a sudden, somebody comes to the door and I look up, and the first thing I see is this T-shirt of Bryan Adams. And I look up at the face of the guy and I said, did anybody ever tell you? And he says, yeah, come on in. He gets it all the time. He looked just like Bryan Adams. Bryan Adams
wearing the shirt?
You don't know who he is. Yeah, he had a Bryan Adams T-shirt. Anyway, we walked in, went through his living room, through his kitchen, and into his breezeway. And he had these shelves filled with styrene kits, mitten box, partially assembled, stuff like that. And I go, wow, John, you got a lot of stuff. He said, yeah. Is there anything in particular you're interested in? And I said, well, I'm really turned on to these garage kits, vinyl and resin. He said, oh, come on out here. We went out into his garage. Shelves full of this stuff. So anyway, I got the Billiken, Metalute Mutant, and the Saucerman for just under $100 each.
Wow.
That
feeling of walking in somewhere you've never been before and seeing kits like that on the shelf is just, it's like, it's electricity. When you get to a new store and it's like, oh, and I still get that feeling when I go somewhere and I don't expect it. If I go in a hobby store out of town and I'm like, oh, they might have something here one little thing, you're like, oh my God, this place is awesome. Wow.
I don't know if you guys still have a pretty good hobby store in your area, but if you're ever in Minneapolis, St. Paul, there's a place on Lexington Parkway called Scale Model Supply, and it's in the basement of a Napa auto store. But it's one of the biggest. Whenever I go back to Minnesota, I always go there.
Okay.
And I have to buy something.
Yeah.
Because they got so much stuff.
I will check it out for sure. If I'm going through there, I will definitely drop in there.
I
love going to new places.
They can stop by and say hi to George Stevenson too.
Oh, I will. We
would go on driving vacations. We were blessed with the fact that I made enough money and my wife made enough money. We could take our kids, and we drove over most of the United States. And whenever we would check into the hotel, I'd grab the phone book and I'd find out where the local hobby stores were. And if it wasn't too late, I'd go and check out the hobby stores.
Yeah. I do the same thing now with my phone. I just type in hobby store or miniature game store everywhere I go and hit my phone on Google Maps and just look. Same thing, but just not in a giant book anymore.
Yeah. Bill had to find the hobby stores without the GPS.
I know. You had to go call them.
That was before smartphones. And that's when people used maps.
Yeah.
Paper maps. Pull them out.
Yep. Remember, you have to tell people directions and you'd have to write them down and figure out.
Guys would never listen to you, and the women would listen to you.
Yep. Speaking of women, how did you meet your wife?
Just so you know. Okay.
How did I meet my
Yeah,
wife?
how'd you meet your wife?
Well, I was at a Farrell's ice cream parlor. You probably heard of those, haven't you?
No.
Oh, it was a turn of the century style ice cream parlor.
Okay.
And they had really good ice cream, but I had worked there. This was at the Brookdale Mall again. And I was in college my first year. And I went back to ask one of the cashiers that worked there if she wanted to go to this concert. And she said, well, before I get to answer her, I sat down and I had some food. Well, Diane waited on me. She was my waitress. And I just, she's kind of attractive. So anyway, I went to this,
A little louder, Phil. I don't think she heard that you thought she was kind of attractive. So maybe a little louder.
Like you, she's my favorite Diane.
She is my favorite Diane.
But sometime remind me to tell you about my adventure that night of the concert.
Okay.
It was quite entertaining. But anyway, my brother, right below me, he was kind of chasing this other waitress, and she just didn't want to have anything to do with him. She just didn't want to date anybody. Well, Diane was good friends with this other gal, and so my brother was kind of working through her to get to this other gal.
I know how that goes.
But anyway, we got to be good friends, and one thing led to another, and we ended up getting married.
Aw.
And then my brother and that gal ended up getting married.
Wow.
And a lot of other people who met and worked at Farrell's got married.
That's a great story, actually.
I don't know what it was. Something in the ice cream, maybe.
Yeah, that's cool.
Bunch of feral cats.
How many years now have you been married? Put you on the spot.
October 9th, it will be 44 years.
Wow.
Did you meet anybody else on your garage kit driving around, or your traveling vacations, or?
Yeah, I was pretty successful. Well, when we were in California, for some reason, the hobby stores there had a lot of the Ultra Monsters in vinyl that Billiken did. So I wasn't real familiar with them, but they were a vinyl garage kit. So I picked them up. That was the same trip we went to San Francisco, and I hooked up with Danny Sirocco. This is when he was still married, and his kids were little. And boy, I had never seen anybody till I met Vince Wenzel.
Yeah.
How many figure kits he had. And he had a I Married a Monster from Outer Space that he was working on his table. They said, what do you got underneath that cheesecloth? And he says, oh, that's the I Married a Monster from Outer Space. Oh, really? Is he going to have that done soon? Yeah, pretty soon. Okay, now that was the mid to late 80s. Into the 2000s, almost every 6 months, I would call him and ask him, Danny, did you finish that I Married a Monster from Outer Space yet? It's getting there. 20 years later, he had somebody else sculpt it.
Oh my gosh. But I'm sure he always told you a good story when you talked to him, right? He's the best storyteller.
And he's a great storyteller. I would love to get him on here, but we try to keep our time down.
Especially with at Wonderfest when he'd been at the bar for a while.
Yep. Those are always the best times at Wonderfest.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of Wonderfest.
Oh yeah.
When was your first Wonderfest?
but it was at the Ramada on the northeast corner of Louisville for a couple of years. And while we were there, I went there with a guy from Wisconsin named Mickey Krause. And from him, we got to be buds. And he gave me one of the first Predator models that Lunar Models had done, sculpted by Randy Bowen. And this is the very first one. It didn't even have the body netting on it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So when I built it, you know, I had to put in, like, the canines didn't come out in the casting. So I went to the backyard and I got a couple of thorns and put those in there, and did the little straps from his elbows. And as far as the body netting, I went to a grocery store and I bought a onion bag, and I cut the pieces out to fit, painted them black, and attached them.
That's a good idea. Actually.
And shortly after I was done, Randy resculpted it with the body netting on it. Yeah, and I had a table there because I had a whole bunch of stuff to sell. And that's where I met Jim Groman and a lot of other guys.
And this is the very first Wonderfest, right? Like, this was the first one.
The first, whatever it was called.
Yeah.
and it was poolside, and it was really humid in there, but it was just really, really cool. And they had a model contest there, and this is when everybody was recasting Aurora's kits in resin, making their own molds and stuff. Well, I had a few. We won't get into that subject. I had a few resin and vinyl garage kits, and my son, I had gotten him into building dinosaurs, and we entered a bunch of kits in the contest, and we walked away with a lot of trophies.
That's awesome. How many people entered back then in that first Wonderfest?
It was a pretty small room. There was probably maybe 100 entries.
Wow. Okay.
It wasn't really huge.
It's still in the sun by the looks of the trophies. Okay, I'm just saying.
What's that?
What'd you say, Scott?
Apparently, just Phil and his son entered because they got all the trophies. By the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Phil, you sent us a picture.
Mhm.
And on this picture, I recognize a few of the faces. Larry Johnson, obviously. Terry Webb with no gray hair. Lee Stanton.
Is there sleeves in this picture?
Mike Parks. Yes, he did have sleeves on. Mike Parks, you and your son, who I would have never recognized you had you not told me that was you. By the time I met you, you had hair and stuff.
Yeah, that was a good time back then. And Wonderfest is still good, but it's changed. It's changed.
What do you think the big difference is between then and now?
Yeah. It's nice. I like it when people share their ideas. I have no problem if somebody asks me, Phil, how did you do that? And I tell them, well, this is how I did it. Try it if it works for you. If not, adjust it a little bit or try something different. You learn by doing. When I lived in Minnesota and I was just starting out in garage kits, I had a Billiken Colossal Beast,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to visit Greg Corlin. You may recognize his name, Scott. He was in Model, whatever it was called, Model Toy Collector, whatever. He did a lot of articles, but he taught me about dry brushing and washing. Prior to that, I would paint the shirt green, paint the face flesh color, paint the hair brown or black. He showed me how to do that kind of stuff, and I was really appreciative of it.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you mentioned dry brushing because I think that was my first aha moment as a kid learning how to paint models, where I was like, holy crap, you can make chainmail look like this by painting it black and then lightly putting silver over it. Like, it was the first, like, oh my God, it's not a solid color. There's ways to do, and then it was washes right after that. Like, it was like, hey, Scott, do you know how to dry brush?
Yes, actually, girl I was dating bought one of those plaster haunted houses, and it had all these little monsters in it, and they gave you all the paints. And she says, "Will you paint this for me?" And she didn't care what it looked like, but I'm looking at the box, but I want it to look just like the box. And they talk about dry brushing in there, so I figured it out. And when I got done, mine looked like the one on the box, and I was like, and I barely had enough one color gray to paint the whole house. But when it got done, I don't know if she still has it or not. I should ask her.
She probably smashed it, knowing.
But
after you cheated,
yeah, something.
Yeah, great show. Watch Bill to remind me of it. Trust me, we were at a theater, and she reminded me of it. And I told Jason before we went she would, and he did. She did. So I hope she doesn't watch. Anyway,
I'm gonna tell her to.
That first Wonderfest, Bill.
Yes, sir.
You told me the story. You did a Fiend without a face, and how did that morph into a kit for George?
I was familiar with the movie. I didn't have, this is before VHS and stuff, and I thought that was such a cool movie. But I took a Visible Man or a Visible Woman kit, and I took the brain and the backbone from the skeleton, and I used some wire or something like that for the arm things and the antennas and stuff. And I used part of a Aurora King Kong base, and then I hand lettered this nameplate, and I put it together. Hey, this is kind of cool. Well, then I started working for George Stevenson when he owned Geometric, And I brought it and I showed it to him. He goes, "That's really cool." And he wanted to buy it from me and make molds of it. And I said, "George, it's not that cool." So he contacted John Dennett. John Dennett sculpted it. And if you're familiar with what the sculpture that John sculpted for Geometric, which is a great kit.
Yeah, it is.
Inspired my little scratch built inspired George to have Geometric produce a kit of Fiend Without a Face.
I think this is our first sequel to a story because I think George told us the other side of that story, or Terry did. Somebody did at Wonderfest. That's awesome.
Did you meet George at Wonderfest, or being in Minneapolis, did you lucky?
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, we were walking out. It was Mickey Krause and my son and I, and somebody introduced us to George and his girlfriend at the time. And we got to talking. And
his wife, but it might have been his wife at the time. I'm not sure. It might be his girlfriend. I don't know. He's got a good story at Wonderfest.
Oh, you just got him in trouble. You just got him in trouble.
We got to talking, and I found out that he lived in St. Paul. And I said, "Really?" And he told me that he was starting up this model company called Geometric Design. I said, "Oh, wow, that's really cool." And so anyway, we got home and I contacted him, and I went to work with him. And the first place that they started producing kits was in his partner, one of his partners, Lynn Silman, I think was his last name. He worked at some place where after hours, George and Lynn would make kits. They'd cast up some resin kits. Then they ended up buying a small place of their own, which I remember it had paneling on all the walls and was really dated. But I think George told you about the break-in that they had in there, and they stole all their equipment and stuff. But I worked with them for a while doing some resin slinging. And then they bought a much larger place. It was on the second or third story of this warehouse place. It had one of those old elevators where you have to raise up the gate.
I love those elevators. My friends still have one of those.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, but I mean, it's really big. You could haul anything in there.
Yeah.
But I started there. I built a bunch of shelving for them to put their box kits so that they could, just pull stock from the shelf to mail off to Diamond Comics or whoever it was. Then I got to slinging resin, and then they got into vinyl, and they had Max Factory doing their vinyl work. And to package up their kits, George had this. There was a company, I don't remember the name of it, but there was some mentally challenged guys that would come and bag the kits for them, and then they had like a supervisor, a guy that would watch over them, and he would check out the kits to make sure all the pieces were in there. But boy, I tell you, I wish I had $1 for every Medusa kit that I bagged.
Oh,
man, I bagged a lot of kits.
Oh,
to go along with that, at one point I bought a
I just got rid of one of those, actually.
Did you?
Yeah.
I bought an emir from George, and it had 2 right arms or something and not a left. And so I remember calling Lynn. Lynn answered the phone at the time, and real nice. And I told him what had happened, and he says, "Yeah, we got some mentally challenged people putting those kits together." And I started laughing because I thought he was talking about his own people working for him. And then he says, "No, really." He says, "We really have, people that, And I said, "Oh, well, that's cool, So, and they sent me the part, no problem. But I'll just remember him saying, "Yeah, mentally challenged." And I'm like, well, that's a nice way to talk about your staff. And that's
the guy's supervisor, he wasn't too on the ball either.
Apparently, because he wasn't all the time. Well.
Yeah.
Oh, Scott, laughing at
you sent us a picture. You were slinging a mold. Do you remember what was in that mold?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I produced 2 figure kits in my time.
Okay.
My company, my meager company, is called Zebulon Productions, and both of my kits are huge kits. Why I go so damn big, I don't know. But my first kit was the Kraken from Ray Harryhausen's Clash of the Titans.
Ah, the Kraken.
The Kraken. McCracken.
Feeling McCracken. Okay.
I had Bob Morales in California. He's really great at sculpting dinosaurs.
Yeah.
He had sculpted it for me. And in payment, I traded all my vinyl Ultra Monsters, and I had a Toho Kong, which, boy, I should have held on to that. Those things are worth so much now. And a bunch of Godzillas, Mecha Godzilla, Mecha Kong, stuff like that. And that's how I paid him. And so I brought the sculptures to Geometric, and George and Lynn helped me make the molds. They provided the silicone. It was really great. George, I had him order me a 10-gallon pack of resin. And so, have you got that picture up there of me doing that?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I think that was the body mold. And to save on resin and weight, because I was selling them, even internationally, I wanted to hollow cast it. So I would, put the mold release in there, rubber band the mold back together. I had a pour spout. I pour in so much resin, plug up the hole, and sit and spin it around like that. And that sucker must have weighed 20 pounds without the resin in there.
My arms get tired.
You look like Popeye by the end of it. Forearms.
But I ended up selling, I think, about 16 of those kits, and probably half of those orders were internationally. But then I sold the molds to Vince Wenzel, who owned Hypno Kits, and he sold a few kits. And then he sold the molds to Monsters in Motion, and I don't know how long the molds lasted. So Monsters in Motion sold a few of them, but it's a piece of history now. But that was my first kit.
Wow, that's a great first kit. Like, everyone knows that kit. Like, I know exactly what it looks like when I think of it.
When I post pictures on Facebook, they said, "Are those still available?" No, I produced them back in the 80s.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Why that kit? Why did you pick that one to be your first?
Well, I was and still am a big Ray Harryhausen fan, and nobody had done a Kraken at the time. I mean, they'd done, the Kali, they'd done Cyclopses, they did Snake Lady from Seventh Voyage, and they did all these kits, but nobody was doing a Kraken. So I'm going to make a kit.
Yeah.
And so I did, and why I did it so big, I don't know.
But hey, that's how kits used to be made. You made ones that you wanted, that no one else did. It wasn't shopped out.
You've made quite a few since, or around that time, you sent us some photos of Mysterious Island kit. Who made that? That is a pretty cool kit.
Oh, is that the Nautiloid?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that, I think Joe Ladati sculpted that, and it was the Nautiloid and the diver that was wrapped up in one of the tentacles.
Right.
What I did was I can't remember, the diver was maybe 3 or 4 parts or something like that. Well, I made molds of the diver, and then I made all the other divers, by repositioning the arms and giving them a spear, or then I fashioned that ray gun, out of just scrap parts. And then I used a geometric Medusa base, part of a base for that base. Mm-hmm. And I made a nameplate for it and stuff.
You still have that one?
No, I sold it.
Oh.
Was that pre-Oregon then, or was that?
No, it was one of the guys in my model club, which we'll probably talk about later.
Okay.
How'd you end up in Oregon?
Remember how beautiful the West Coast was. And so we flew to Portland, rented a car, drove to Astoria, which is in the northwest corner, and spent 2.5 weeks touring the Oregon coast, making notes about real estate, shopping, medical facilities, just stuff like that. And we thought Coos Bay was a pretty cool town. Had everything, had a Walmart, didn't have much else. But anyway, after 2 years, I was still working at Prudential, but I went home one day and I said, "What do you think about it? Should we do it?" "Yeah, let's do it." So we put our house on the market. The market was good at the time. Had a big garage sale, sold a bunch of junk, and still got the biggest U-Haul. And drove out there, rented a house for that summer, and then bought a 1895 vintage home. Restored that. It was a beautiful house. Why we left that? Well, we left that because our daughter had a son, our grandson Aiden, and they had moved to Portland from Minnesota. And that was a 4-hour one-way drive. Well, we wanted to live closer, so we started looking for a place to live. Portland was way too expensive. So we started moving out, moving out, moving out. Well, we found a brand new house in Willamina, which we could have paid cash for, but we wanted to have a little deduction. So we've been here since March of 2015 and loving it.
Cool.
When you moved to Oregon, how was it moving all the kids? What'd you do with all your kids? Did you have a lot at that point? Or?
Well, when I decided to move, that was the winter of 2000. And I thought, they're never going to make the move. So I got another table at Wonderfest. And I went to almost every Wonderfest until we moved out here. But I got a table and I made a lot of money with my built up kits. But I did keep about 20 of them, and I packed those up. Mm-hmm. Then we moved and we had stuff in storage until we got into our house and I set up the model room. Then when I unpacked everything, not the smallest twig of a tree was broken. So then I started collecting kits again.
Did it hurt to sell?
It did. And I'm selling a lot of kits now because I'm getting older and I don't want the burden put on my family to deal with all my stuff. So you get over it pretty fast.
I'll fill through the grapevine. There's some flip-flopping that goes on sometimes. And there is some seller's remorse at times. And
yeah, it's kind of sad, but I miss some of my children, but I'm building new children.
True.
So when you got to Coos Bay, was there a hobby shop? Was that in your
There was one in North Bend, which is like a sister city connected to Coos Bay.
I believe I've been through North Bend. So
it was just across the bridge.
Okay.
But they had a little hobby store that had a lot of trains.
Okay.
I don't ever remember seeing they might have had a military, like an armor kit or a plane or something like that, but not really. So, the internet was alive and eBay was there, so I was able to get my kits. But I was the local newspaper called The World sent out a thing saying, if you got an interesting hobby or collection or something like that, we'd like to do an article on your hobby or collection. So I called up the paper and I said, well, this is what I do. Well, they sent out a photographer and a reporter, and they wrote up a thing, and they published a couple of pages out of their little magazine thing that they do once in a while. And Kurt Krause, who lived in Brookings, worked for their little newspaper down there, and he happened to see that article, and he contacted me. Well, then we got to be buds, and we decided that, he was from the Midwest too. So we decided, well, let's build kits together. Let's get together. So we created what we call, Kurt dubbed it the Model Palooza, which was either I would go down to his place for a weekend, or he'd come up to my place. We'd spend the whole weekend building models, eating junk food, drinking lots of caffeine, watching films, and listening to music, and just schmoozing about the hobby and building kits.
I miss those kind of things.
Which is funny because Kurt lived in Wisconsin. When he lived in Wisconsin, it's outside of, how far was it from Winona to Minneapolis? A couple hours? 2-3 hours?
Yeah, Winona was south.
So he actually lived close to Phil even back in the day. So they kind of reconnect here. Two guys from the same part of the country, they reconnect. And it was around 2003. I'd been to Kurt's once, and I had heard him talk about Phil. And it was the last Imagination show. So Kurt decided he was going to go to Imagination, him and Phil. Okay. Now we're talking, so Coos Bay was what from Brookings, where Kurt lived at the time? An hour and a half, 2 hours? It was a good ride.
Couple hours.
Yeah. So Phil drove down, picked Kurt up, and from Kurt's house in Brookings, Oregon, they drove to Las Vegas. Okay. And so the plan was they'd get to Las Vegas, and then I flew to Las Vegas, but I was going to drive back with them and then spend some time at Kurt's and then fly home. So that's where I first met Phil. That's where I also had my first 113-degree encounter where I said, what the hell is 113 degrees? Phil, I don't know if you remember this, but right before we left, I remember I needed something out of my bag and that we were loading in the back of your car. And I was on one knee on the ground, and I was like, I jumped up and I'm like, I'm on fire. What's going on? And the pavement was so hot, it was burning through my jeans
Yeah.
into my knee. So I took that, we left probably around noon that day.
No, it was like 2 o'clock or so. Because I remember we went out and made the mistake of leaving the car out during the day in the sun.
Oh, yeah.
Underground parking. And we opened up all the car doors, opened up the trunk, and I had a package of Hostess donuts.
Yeah.
They were soup.
Yeah, they were meltaways. They were called Hostess meltaways at that point.
After about 20 minutes, we just decided, well, it's about as cool as it's going to get. We got in the car, we started. Once we got to the freeway, I think it only took us about 15 minutes. We're on the freeway for about 20 minutes until the temperature gauge on the engine started to go back down.
Yeah.
It was hot.
And you go through, when you make this trip, you go through just the tip of Death Valley. I mean, so and there's a phone. Remember, Phil, there's phones. I remember this so vividly. There's phones like every hour or every mile. I'm sorry. Every mile there's a phone in case you fall out. You don't have to walk that far to get to an emergency phone. But the car was so packed, and I'm the second tallest of the three of us, but Kurt manages to squeeze me into the back seat.
They squeezed you into the back seat?
Yeah, I was a little thinner then.
Okay.
Okay. And the stuff was piled up between the three of us. We had kits and I had luggage and stuff. The stuff was piled up all the way next to me. So I didn't have a lot of room, either way. So we make this trip. We drive through. I remember seeing a brothel in the middle of nowhere. That was pretty funny. And
how long did you stop there?
Huh?
How long did you stop there?
Phil's happily married for 4 years.
How long did it
I
take
didn't ask about Phil. I asked about you.
So we went through this old mine town. It's an old mining town. It was so weird because you see these towns in the middle of nowhere and you go, why are these towns here? And there were mine carts still there. And I sent you some pictures that will pop up. And there was about 3 or 4 cars. I call it car art.
Yeah.
And these guys, they glued shit on these cars like ice trays and action figures and whatever they found. They just glued on these cars. These cars didn't run, I don't think.
Dolls and clocks and just
whatever. So it was crazy. So we drove that night or that day from Las Vegas to Sacramento, California. Remember, we got to Sacramento late.
I think we stayed in Susanville, which is outside of
Sacramento. But it wasn't far from Sacramento where we were. Because I think,
right.
And in a Motel 6.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day we went the rest of the way, and it was still like another 6 hours. And we went through Weed, and there's going to be a picture pop up of Kurt and Phil in front of the Weed Oasis passing some weed. But no, they weren't really passing weed, but we figured it was a good staging point. But so Phil got broke into me with about a 16-hour car ride.
Oh God. And he still talks to you. I don't even know how this is even possible.
He even roomed with me at Wonderfest one year.
He gives me figure kits for free. That's why I talked to him.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'd talk to him for that. I guess.
That's probably the best kit in your collection. I'm just gonna say.
For sure. Right?
Right.
Oh, 16 hours in the car with Johansson. Good grief.
What?
16 had air conditioning
though. Hey, spend 3 hours with Kurt and 16 hours in a car with me won't seem so bad. But one thing about about Phil is when it's go time, it's go time. Let's go. And there's no dawdling around. And if you know our friend Kurt, he is epitome of dawdle. Okay. We made a pretty good time. I also remember we went through like one of those areas that had to be where they stored the missiles too, because they had all the lights on the side. It was like some military installation.
That was probably Area 51.
So
no, I wasn't kidding.
It was. I'll never forget. Yeah. And you know what's funny, Phil? When I look back, that trip doesn't seem like it took that long, but that was a long ride.
That's because we had such a good time.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, see, I'm a nice guy. That's why.
When I got to Willamina, I look back on, I had Kurt that we could, hang out from time to time. But I miss the guys in Minnesota that I used to hang around with. There was Dave Courier and Terry Ingram and George Stevenson, Vince Wenzel. Well, there's Bob.
I knew Terry and I knew Courier, I think.
Yeah. And you knew George.
Did you? Yeah, but I didn't know George. I knew Terry before I was even knew of Garage Kids, because Terry used to come to the Kane County Toy Show down here in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of met Terry through Kurt. And I remember Terry when his hair was down to about here. I don't know if when you first met him, he still had long hair. But when I first met Terry,
When
he had
lived
hair
in the
down to about
apartment.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and he was a good painter. That's one thing people don't know about Terry Ingram. He did a Land of the Giant snake one time that just blew me away.
In enamels.
And enamels, yes. Yes.
Beautiful.
Enamels.
Tell me about the Creeping Terror.
Creeping Terror was my second kit that I produced. And I had Adam Doherty sculpt it for me, Creature Kid.
Yeah.
And, somebody turned me on to that horrible movie. People say that Plan 9 from Outer Space has got to be the worst movie. Watch The Creeping Terror. You will put Plan 9 up on a pedestal.
Watch any of the movies on Jason's list last week, But,
yeah, I got that list here.
I'm not even.
But I thought, I've always been into B movies. I'm a real fan of Paul Blaisdell and his work.
mm-hmm.
And I appreciate what they made on such a small budget. Well, if you really know the history about The Creeping Terror, the guy that produced and directed, and he was the main star and everything, he was quite a shyster. He made off with all the money that he promised all those people that got involved with the film. But I thought, boy, and you gotta see that film. It's so bad. And the monster is, a lot of people call it the carpet monster because it looks like a piece of carpet with a vertical portion in the front, which we figured that there was a person in the vertical portion that kind of walked bow-legged, and underneath the carpet portion, there was like 2 or 3 other people, so that when the monster ate people, its mouth orifice was kind of between where the actor's legs would be, and they kind of sucked the people in.
It's not a
like
good
that.
place for an orifice.
It moves so slow that, like my model depicts where this young couple are making out on this blanket, and this Creeping Terror is slowly coming up towards it. Not creeping, just it's really slow. The boy sees it, and he takes off, leaving his girlfriend on this blanket. She doesn't run. She just and the monster is still like 30 feet away, and she's and it comes and gobbles her up.
It reminds me of my dad. He always tells my mom, this is why I'm a horrible person. He always tells my dad if there's ever a bear, he just has to run faster than my mom. That's what he always says. And I always tell Jamie, if there's zombies, I'm just going to shoot her in the leg and keep going.
Don't even have to run faster. You just hit them with a bat, and then you run while they're waking up. The bear's going to get that. So.
Oh, man. Yeah, leave the girl behind. Why not?
So what happened to that kid? You still have that one, or did you sell that?
Well, I've still got the one that I built for myself, but the molds ended up going to Almatrone, who had bought geometric design from George.
Yep.
And as many of us know, Almatrone had a fire and lost everything. So
I didn't know that. How did I not know that?
No,
because you don't read anything anywhere.
That's probably true. I don't read.
Is there the latest on that, Phil? Have you heard anything? Because that's been going on a while now.
I shoot out a note to Al every once in a while, and he had the fire about, it's got to be like 3 years or so ago. And he had trouble with his contractor and the insurance company. Mm-hmm. And anyway, he ended up doing a lot of the repairs that the contractor was doing to the house. He had to bulldoze what was left and start out, fresh. But he says that he's going to start up shop again, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay. Wow. Well, that is news to me. I totally missed that somehow.
So you guys started a little club up there kind of type thing, huh?
Yeah. Like I said, I used to hang out with a number of guys in Minnesota, and I really miss that, even though I had Kurt to hang out with. So I was frequent frequenting Hobby Talk, and I put a shout out. Okay, all you guys in the Portland, Oregon area, anybody feel like getting together and showing your wares, schmooze about the hobby, whatever. Well, I got, along with Kurt, I got 2 other guys, and so we met at my house, and I grilled burgers and had all the fixings and stuff like that. And I asked them to bring some stuff that they had built up, and bring some stuff, some figure kits or whatever that they didn't want or they wanted to trade or sell or whatever. So I dubbed it the Swamp Meat, MEAT, rather than swap meat. Swamp meat.
I like swamp meat.
Yeah. So anyway, the first gathering was at my place, and there was 4 of us. We had a good time.
And Phil was wearing the same shirt he's got on now.
Was that this shirt?
Yes.
Oh. Yeah. I was trying, before this podcast, I was trying to figure out, well, which one of my shirts should I wear? And I thought, well, these guys are outside Chicago, so I'll put the resin head shirt.
And then you had an offensive blanket on the couch there, I see.
That's my wife's.
That's
I'm from Minnesota, but she's the diehard Vikings fan, and she'll tell you.
Phil, I want to thank you for thinking about your attire, because I had to make Scott change shirts tonight.
Oh, whatever. So
who's that on there? Frankenstein and who?
Vincent Price.
I got to meet Vincent Price when I was in college.
Really? How'd that happen?
Really was really tall and the nicest guy in the world. He sat, it was in the drama department, and we sat and talked with him for, I don't know how long it was, and he'd tell you anything. He was like Harryhausen, just the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah, Ray was a real nice guy as well.
Mm-hmm. After that initial meeting, we decided we'd try and contact other guys. Well, people knew Mark Brokaw, Mark Keeneland, a few other guys. So the next time we met a few months later was one of the initial guys at his house in Hillsborough, or Cornelius, which is outside Hillsborough, which is west of Portland. And there was about 12 of us there. Then the next time we met, a month or 2 later, there was 20 of us. Then the next time that we met, there was about 30 of us. And it's, kept about 30 or so. But then COVID-19 reared its ugly head, and we haven't been able to meet.
You basically had your own show there, really.
And is that Kalen with a gray beard now?
Yep.
God, I haven't seen him in years, but yeah, it looks like him. And then that was the one you had Mark Worthling was at.
Yeah.
Because he was there next to Brokaw.
Yeah.
And Matt McWhirter. Yeah, I recognize a few of them. So
Charlie Babbage?
I don't know that I know Charlie, no. The name sounds familiar though.
Back in the day, I used to build for people, and that's how I funded my habit.
Yeah.
And rather than exchange, have somebody pay me, I'd say, okay, I'll build that kit for you if you give me that kit.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that have that deal, I think.
Yeah. Even with my time that I put in, I figure I made about $1 an hour. But
yeah,
when you're doing something you love.
Yeah.
One guy that I built a lot of kits, at least 50 kits for, was a guy named Bill Ostrander.
Okay.
He's deceased. He used to call me every day and talk about almost the same thing. But he knew a lot about the hobby and about film. That I built a lot of kits for him because he didn't feel that he was blessed with, the ability.
Right.
And he also collected armory and airplanes and stuff. He had some other people. Well, he had a stroke while he was driving down the road, and he pulled off to the side of the road. Well, they didn't find him in time, so they had him hooked up for a while. And then his sisters decided to pull the plug, and then they sent his stuff to an online auction, and I never found out where it was because there was a Lost in Space Cyclops model that he had commissioned John Nemec to sculpt, and then Resin from the Grave produced the kit. Well, I built one for Bill, and because he had commissioned John to do that, I wanted that kit, but
yeah,
we got it.
Oh,
but yeah, I built for a number of people, and I still do it once in a while now because
Yeah.
I have that many kits of my own.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'd rather build for myself at this point. And
And you've done a little work for Blackheart that you had sent us some photos of as well. And I think we showed some of those photos.
yeah,
in
last
one of
week.
the episodes. Yeah.
Yeah, George, of course, he had geometric design. And back when he started a line called Micromania, and they're little, what, around 1/25th scale
Yeah, they're small.
monsters.
Yeah.
And you could buy the monster with a little round disc to mount it on of resin, or you could buy the optional kit to go with it, or the base to go with it. Well, once he started up Blackheart, he wanted to re-release these. So I don't know what kind of a deal he made with Almatron, but George contacted me and wanted to know if I would resculpt do some different bases for him. So that's what I've been doing. I've done about 6 or 8. Some of them haven't made it to the production yet.
Okay.
There's one that's going to be pretty big. I mean, it's about this big, but the figures are still 1/25th scale. And I'd tell you about it, but then I'd have to kill you.
Yeah, and I don't want to die. So yes, I can't wait to see that. That'd be cool.
I think you might have told me, but I can't say. I won't say. So,
I think you in particular, Scott, will really like it.
yeah. Yeah.
It's a cartoon. Is it Fred
No.
Flintstone?
We can't tell you. What part of we can't tell you don't you understand?
It's probably
Okay.
Fred Flintstone.
That's not.
Yeah, well, and just on a side note, Phil, so you know, George went to this miniature show that was in Chicago. What was it called, Jason?
Adepticon.
No, the other one.
Oh, it was the
First, the hobby
the figure World Expo something.
Figure World
Yeah, or
Expo.
something like that.
And the work was amazing, Phil. It was all miniatures and stuff.
Mhm.
I think that's when George had a table set up there, and I think that's when he and maybe he had been to Adepticon prior to that, but he realized, hey, this is a separate hobby apart from what we do,
It's huge.
and apart from what he does now too, as far as full size busts and stuff as well. So George has adapted, and which I think more people in the garage kit hobby do need to do. And he sells a lot of miniature busts. And now, so, you know, when he saw these figures, he thought that would be a good chance, I believe, for him to get these Micromanias back.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your modeling, just in general? How you do things, what you like, what you
Okay.
like to do, how you like to build things, what you like to work with, what tools you like to use, any little tips you want to just kind of put out there for somebody, something that you learned along the way that you'd like to pass on to somebody else, that sort of thing.
Sure. Well, my main interest right now, as I mentioned, I'm selling off a lot of stuff, with the exception of my Outer Limits figures and my Think Weirdos, Lindbergh Loonies type things. I prefer like 1/6 scale, but if it's a kit that I haven't had that I really want, then hey, I'll go smaller, I'll go larger. For my styrene, I use the Tester's Gray, and for the resin, and I haven't built a vinyl kit forever, but for the resin kits, I use Magic Sculpt, and I'm happy with it. I have never touched an airbrush.
Ever.
Never, ever.
I like that.
Even I have used an airbrush, Phil.
What's that?
Even I have touched an airbrush before.
Whoa! And what did you do with it? Look at it.
I've got some stuff.
He took it out of the box. That's what he did.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I know, but I do have like 5 of them now. Okay, I do have.
Never have enough airbrushes, right?
So
that's right.
Why do you think?
Because there's 2 hands, but you need more air.
Why do you think it is? Why have you never used an airbrush?
Maybe I'm scared. I've never used it, so I'm afraid I'll screw something up. And I'm happy with the results, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but a lot of people that I build kits for are happy with the results that they got from me too. So
I went through this phase of like, and I think and maybe you'll agree with me, maybe you won't, but there's a lot of people I'm trying to think, like 92 is when I got my first airbrush and started using it. And it helps. It's a great tool for certain things. But then there's people that want to sell airbrush paint, want to sell airbrushes, and that's great. So, and then in magazines, you see everyone using an airbrush, and everyone's like airbrush, 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 airbrush. And I fell into that trap, and I never, ever used a regular paintbrush again. I tried to airbrush everything thinking that that was going to make it look awesome. And it doesn't. If you airbrush like everything, it looks airbrushed. And I think like even when you go to Wonderfest and you look at the contest, you're like, oh, wow, yeah, they used an airbrush instead of like, I have now fallen back into using a paintbrush all the time and then using an airbrush once in a great while for other like little effects. I love the feeling of using a paintbrush over using an airbrush. And it just, you feel like a painter. You feel like there's something so much more tactile about it for me than doing this with a trigger on and off. And I don't know. They're great to have. I totally get it. And some people do amazing things with them to where it doesn't look it. But if you're not great with that airbrush, it looks airbrushed. And it's like, oh, okay. I get it.
I've talked to some people and they say the downside of airbrushing is
Airbrushing.
No.
Cleaning it. Clean. Oh, it's the worst.
Cleaning it. Yeah. They say it sucks. I hate cleaning it, but you got to clean it.
Yep. And I'm bad at that too. Like it'll sit there and get ruined. And then I'm like, oh, I'm just going to start painting it, and then you have to clean it. And just, yeah.
Or when you ruin it, you can always go over to Scott's and get another one of his. He's
That's
got
true.
5.
Yeah, he probably does.
Yeah. No, my painting technique is, of course, you do all the cleanup work, seam work, all that stuff. Shoot primer on it. And then I'll put the base coat on, no matter what part I'm doing. And then I'll do a wash. Then I'll dry brush the base coat color on, and then I'll highlight it a little bit. And then my ending highlight and little details and stuff. And then I'll wash it again, because that final wash seems to make the dry brush, if you're a dry brusher, you know what I'm talking about. That dry brush sticks out. But when you put that wash on, it kind of molds everything together and it doesn't look.
It does. It sinks it all together. It does.
And as I get older, with a lot of trouble that a lot of us old guys have, our eyes and our hands don't work quite the same anymore. Well, use a magnifier if you have to, but when you're going to paint those dots on the eyeballs, take a breath and hold your breath, for that couple of seconds, and it helps. It steadies your hand a little bit. For me, anyway.
It does. That's it's good advice.
That means Diane's going to find Phil someday up there holding his breath with the brush in one hand, and that's going to be it. That's how she's going to find him. And Phil, you're doing some kit bashing these days?
Yeah. If you've been on Facebook and a number of the modeling groups, you've seen my Incredible Think, which is a combination of the MPC Incredible Hulk kit and a few parts from the Revell Dragnut kit, generic base, and let's see what else. And then I added a lot of teeth to the Dragnut. We got a picture up there of it?
I do have a picture. Where did the head come from that he's holding? What did the head come from that he's holding?
Okay, the head was the Outer Limits Soldier episode that Dimensional Design had produced. The kit came with 2 heads, and one of them was just the Michael Anzera head. Well, I used the other head on the figure, and I took that Michael Anzera head, and because it was solid resin, I bored out the center of it, and then I found a piece from my junk box to glue on the top so I could extend his cranium, and then everything else is sculpted in with Magic Sculpt.
Those are Superman beams in the background, aren't they?
Yep, from the Aurora Superman.
I picked that up. So,
but do you know who that head belonged to? You might know, but Jason, that's way before Jason's time.
I won't know.
I would say one of the Think kits. Surf Pink?
No. The head that the Think is holding.
Oh, that he's holding. No, you know what? I didn't. Although it looks like the leader,
That's right.
the lethal leader.
You
Yes,
win the bubble up cooler.
the
Oh,
lethal leader was also gamma rayed out, but he got super smart instead of super strong.
Instead of strong. Yep.
I don't like when Scott wins anything. This is
And
not.
then you sent in a picture of a Thor, which obviously was a converted Superman kit. I would guess.
Actually, it's got pieces of Thor or of Superman. One of the hands is the Frankenstein. I don't have that Thor kit, but one of his hands is the Aurora Frankenstein hand.
Now, yeah.
The other hand is Batman hand.
Okay, and I see that now that you say it. Yep.
Yeah, the cape is Batman. The base is part of King Kong base with a hand lettered nameplate. The face is a Flash Gordon, the Revell Flash Gordon face. His hair is a bunch of different things. It's the Salem Witch from Aurora, some bird wings, just a whole bunch of stuff. The top of his helmet is part of the lab equipment from the Bride of Frankenstein. There was a lot of, I documented what I did for that and I wrote it up. But there's a lot of pieces.
You also sent us the Space Ranger.
Yeah, the Space Ranger is, somebody did a resin casting of the Revell Flash Gordon before Atlantis did it. And I thought, I always wanted to do Space Ranger because he's my all-time favorite comic book character. So I thought, well, his uniform is pretty close to, Flash Gordon's uniform is pretty close to Space Ranger's. So I got that resin casting and I gave him a haircut and did a few alterations to his suit. Gave him another ray gun, another holster. I tried vacuum forming his clear helmet, if you're familiar with the character, but I just couldn't get that right. But his cohort Cyril, who he can morph himself into anything, that's all scratch built. His two round, like his head and his body, are the rollers from Roll-On deodorant. See, I save everything, man. If
That's
I can
awesome.
use it, I'll save it.
And then you painted that one kind of in that two-dimensional style too, that cartoon style.
Yeah, that's how I tried to paint it like a comic book rather than doing all kinds of blending and stuff.
Okay.
Have you ever done anything for a magazine?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I did a few issues back of AFM. I did an article on how to make your own nameplate, and I think that was issue 68.
Okay. Yeah, everybody go back and check that out. You can get those how-tos.
Yeah, I want to thank George Stevenson for turning me on to how to make brush-on molds.
What do you use?
I use a product. It's called Mold Builder.
Okay. Yeah.
You can pick it up. Well, I pick it up at Hobby Lobby because I got a 40% off one item and save myself some bucks. But yeah, it's a nice cheap way of making a one-shot or two-shot mold.
Okay.
It takes a little time to make them, but it's a lot cheaper than making a
silicone.
latex.
Phil
I have a tub.
has a lot in common with birds. They're both cheap. Okay, I'm just saying. All right, he will find the cheapest way to do something. I do know that about Phil.
Well, I think he just gave the best tip: is always get that coupon for Michael's all the time. The 40% off.
Get on their mailing list.
Yep.
You get that 40% from Hobby Lobby or Michael's
all the time. Get on their mailing list or get the app on your phone so you walk up and you have it every time. Anytime I buy something, I usually wait till I get the coupon. And
so,
it's
Phil, when you
off.
stood up, there was a pterodactyl in the background. Did you paint that?
Yeah, let me show you. See, this is what happens when you get your kids or your grandkids involved in the hobby.
Aww.
And they have a great time doing it as long as you let them do what they want to do.
Right.
You kind of guide them a little bit. Then you ask them, well, what color do you want to use for there? Well, I want to use that dark blue for the wings. Okay, and how about the front of the wings? Because that's a different color. Okay, I want orange. Okay, but we had a good time building this together, and he's going to give it to his mom for her birthday.
Ah, and you sent us a little picture of him painting the wings.
Yeah.
And I love how he's holding the brush. Okay.
Mhm.
And Jason being the art teacher, there's nothing about that that doesn't drive him crazy.
Well, I have to
I
coach
like
him.
the brush.
Every once in a while, I'll tell him, choke up on the brush. Yeah, better control.
So,
Well, it depends. If he's painting on a canvas, you want to pull back.
but I think it's awesome that you got him involved, and
And I think you just gave another very, 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 very important piece of information. You got to let them do it. You got to let them decide on the colors. It's about process. It is not about outcome. If you're trying to get a little kid to do something, let them play with it. Let them choose. Let them do those things. It's not about you building the model kit. Let them pick and just say, hey, that's awesome when they're done, because that's what they need to keep them going. And we need more kids doing this. Otherwise, this all goes away.
Give them praise.
Yep.
And Phil, we're running along, I'm sure. So, are there any other hobbies you have, Phil?
Yeah, I in my college days I used to paint paintings, and I was a big fan of Salvador Dali and Rene Magritte, who were surrealists.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of picked up on what they did, and I think you've got a few pictures of.
We do. We have 3 pictures. I don't know even how to describe them. The first one is got an eel and a skeleton and a stoplight and a guy holding an umbrella.
Yeah, that one is, the title of that one is awaiting. Now mental block. See what happens when we
pressure them.
you get old.
Yep. When the glaucoma glasses come out. Yep.
Yeah, it's awaiting something.
Yeah, awaiting a name apparently, Phil.
Yeah, awaiting randomness or something like that.
All right, and then the next one is the one with the flamingo and the fish swallowing up the
cloak figure. Yeah, that one's entitled.
And
that one's entitled "Welcome to the."
Welcome to the. Now, is there a reason the same gentleman with the umbrella is in this painting as well as the other one?
Okay, in this painting, the painting on the wall, that's a small version of a painting that I did before. And on the other wall is that kind of cubistic type thing. That's when I was in love with Pablo Picasso's work. But I had painted those paintings, and I have the Picasso one still. But the other one, I don't know what happened to it. But those were college paintings. And the 3 that you're looking at now are ones that I've done since I started up about 5 years ago.
And what were Picasso's last words, Phil? Come on, really?
I don't know. I used to know.
Drink to me, drink to my health. You know I can't drink anymore.
Yep.
And Paul McCartney did a song to that.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway.
Wait. Phil, have you ever seen a Dali painting in person?
As a matter of fact, in St. Petersburg, Florida.
I was just going to bring that up. Have you been there?
If you're in St. Petersburg, go.
It is I went with Dan Colonna when I went down there to visit him. It is one of the most amazing places. And people won't know this. I think we are going so long on this today, but Salvador Dali has a lot in common with a miniature painter, because his brushstrokes, the tiniest, like when you see his paintings in a book or something, you think they're huge, right? Some are, but some of them are really, really small. And it's the tiniest little brushstroke that like a miniature painter would use that creates this crazy just effect on something that changes everything. It's just, if you get a chance, please go to the Dali Museum in Florida in St. Petersburg. You will appreciate it as a model painter.
We were at the National Art Museum in Washington, D.C. one year, and we were going from one wing to another, and we had to take this stairway that was split up, and on the landing, halfway up, on the wall was, I don't know if you're familiar with this Last Supper.
Yep.
Where it's like mirror image on either side. That was hanging in the stairway, and you couldn't even see the whole thing.
Oh man,
sacrilegious!
He is.
And what's our last one called here, Phil?
It's called There Goes the Neighborhood.
Okay.
Is it a painting of Scott? No, just kidding.
No. That's no, but it does look like the Psycho house is in the sand. Way in the end, way in the background there.
Yeah, I collect pictures, that I think, oh, that'd be good in a painting someday. I've got this big collection of all kinds of animals and buildings and scenery and ghosts and nudes. And, I'll say one thing about nudes, the female figure, and all artists will agree, the female figure is so much more attractive and fun to paint and draw and everything and look at than the male figure. The male figure is boring.
I'd like to know what the naked guy with the axe is doing, because they got to make safety movies about that guy. Because
actually, that's a picture taken. I don't know if it was in Michigan or Minnesota, but those polar bear people that they chop holes in ice.
We got those.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those.
How is it playing Santa Claus still?
We have here in Willamina, even though we're a little town, our two big things are we have got a huge 4th of July celebration, and people from all the towns around come to Willamina for that. Well, of course, we didn't have it this year, but we also have for Christmas at the beginning of December, we have a Christmas light parade where people, will dress up their logging trucks or their tractor or their Model T. There's a guy that's got a Model T, and they put lights on it. But at the end of it, we have a horse-drawn carriage, which Santa Claus waves to everybody along the side of the road. Well, the last couple of years, I've been Santa Claus. And my beard people think that I'm wearing a fake beard, but after growing it the whole fall and trimming it a little bit, it's a really beautiful beard.
Aww.
Not as nice as Jason's beard.
Oh no, you've got the Santa look down with the glasses like that, the thin wire glasses. That's
and the kids. Then after the parade at the community center, I sit and kids tell me what they want for Christmas, and then I give them a candy cane, and they really like that.
Tell me you're gonna shoot your eye out, kid.
I'm not putting any overtime in.
I have some questions, Phil. I have some questions for you.
Yes, sir.
These are a either or. The first one that pops into your mind. All right. And I think you kind of answered one of them, but I'll do it. We'll see. First one.
Jim Hansen.
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead. All right.
Plastic or resin?
Sorry, both.
Both. Oh, see, that's cheap.
I like them both. And vinyl, I think is kind of fallen by the wayside.
Okay.
I used to do vinyl too, but plastic and resin, I do both of them. I think maybe I can get more inventive with resin. So
Okay.
I'll say resin.
All right. That works. Now versus then. The hobby 20 years ago to the hobby today.
Then
if you
I
could
guess.
swap them, where are you at?
It would all depends on what you're talking about, but overall, I think I like it back when.
Yeah.
It was a lot funner. People were having a lot more fun. And, people have really gotten good at what they're doing now, but it's not the fun hobby anymore.
Yeah.
For the most part.
That I get you. I know what you're saying. Classic Universal monsters versus Hammer.
See, I don't do either of them now.
Okay. That's a good answer.
I would say Hammer maybe, because I'm tired of Frankenstein. Sorry, Scotty. I know you're the Universal guy, but I'm tired of all the Frankenstein. Sorry, Jeff. You're great at what you do, but all you guys want, let's produce a Frankenstein. Let's have Jeff Yeager sculpt this one. And he does a great job, but we've got enough Frankenstein.
One in the mail, actually. Thanks.
What did you say? There's going to be a bomb?
Jeff Yeager in the mail coming. Frankenstein.
All right, my other either or. Lord of the Rings or the Avengers movies?
Avengers, I guess.
That's it.
Like I told you, I think
I'm out.
I told you I'm
Just kidding. Hold on.
I'm Batman out. I'm Star Wars.
All right,
out.
this interview's over with. And... All right, where were we?
Phil's a little older than us. He doesn't have time to watch all the Lord of the Rings.
But the books were out then anyway.
I've got all the movies on DVD.
Okay. All right. That helps. That helps a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a lot older than you guys.
So Phil, I've got one.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you two. Who's tasting movies? Walker's or Johansson's?
Phil's.
Phil.
Best answer. That's the
Phil,
best answer. That's the best answer.
I think we talked about that. And Jason is so much younger than us, and he's of a different time.
It's 10 years. 10 years behind Scott.
We're the old guys, Scott, and you're a Mr. Universal, and I'm Mr. B movie and Harryhausen, and we both like Harryhausen. And Scott, the only slasher movie that I really like is the first Pumpkinhead.
I love Harryhausen movies. I'm one of those kids that, I watched all the old movies when I was a kid. I really did.
Yeah, like Adventures of Robin Hood.
I just didn't stop. That's an old movie.
Old movie.
And it was an old boring movie. There's no monster in that movie. Why would I watch that?
Yeah.
There's some dudes running around in tights swinging swords at each other.
But you watch Moby Dick with the whale.
That's a monster whale. It's a monster
I like
whale.
Moby Dick.
All right, we're gonna stick. There's a joke there somewhere.
Peck as Captain Ahab.
Yeah.
Oh man. Scott, what's your other question? You had one more.
Who's a better host, Johansson or Walker?
Oh my God, what are you doing? What are you doing?
You're a little guy there.
Yeah, I'm gonna vote for the skeleton.
The remembered prisoner of
I'll tell you what.
Steel Murray.
I'll tell you what, if I don't start getting paid, you're gonna have the skeleton for a co-host.
I don't get paid. What are you talking about?
I told you I'm the talent pal.
Oh man.
You mean we get paid?
And I think I kind of want to ask this of everybody. If you could have any kit right now made that hasn't been made, kind of our last episode, what would you want?
Well, I sent you my top 10 list.
Yeah.
And you agreed with 3 of them. Now, one was Alice the Goon. Another was Alice Cooper.
Yep.
And what was the third one that you liked? You remember?
Oh, I got to go find the email. I just.
But yeah, okay. A kit, I would think probably.
Sorry, I could do it. Oh, I'm looking.
The Voodoo Woman from the movie of the same. It was another Paul Blaisdell that Geometric did when Al Matrone owned it, and it wasn't very good. So I've been talking with somebody, and hopefully they're going to produce one, have Joe Ladati sculpt it.
Nice.
It'll be him.
Nice. Oh, cool. Scott, did you find it?
Like this of Alice Cooper he had on there, which Neil DeConte also wanted an Alice
Yeah,
Cooper.
that's 2 votes for Alice Cooper. So, like,
Yeah.
I think there's a market for an Alice Cooper kit at this point. Someone do it. Somebody do it.
There you go.
Well, Phil, thank you so much for coming and joining us. This has been a blast.
It was fun. If you ever get bored and can't find anybody else.
We will have you on again, I promise.
Great. I better get building. Right, Scott?
Yes, get building.
What is this building word? What is that? What is this building thing? So.
But yeah, seriously, thank you so much for coming on, and be safe out there with the fires and the riots and everything else. And
Will do.
What a mess. But
thanks for having me, and everybody share your talents with everybody.
Yeah.
And have a good time in the hobby.
Right.
I think that's some great advice.
Right.
What's he say?
He says, yeah.
And please don't kill Kurt Krause. Okay. Phil froze up.
Oh no, Phil froze up at the end. What happened?
We lost him.
We lost him.
Phil, come back.
See,
okay, probably a good place to end it then.
Everybody, welcome back. That was our interview with Phil. Scott, what did you think?
Well, I thought it was a great interview. A little technical snafu at the very end, but what a great spot to have it.
It happened right in the right spot.
Yeah, it was. It was a long interview, but Phil's been around since the beginning. I mean, that's for sure.
How many people can say they were at Wonderfest 1?
Yes.
Like, not many.
Nope.
That are still doing this.
Yep. So Phil's a great guy. I've been to Phil's house. I roomed with Phil at Wonderfest, and he's just a real easygoing, great guy. And when I got sick last year, he sent me a little gift, and even this year he sent me a DVD of his built-ups that he did. A lot of
cool.
them. It was just a DVD that he had done, and I teased him about it because at the beginning of the DVD he didn't have a beard, and at the end of the DVD he did have a beard, and I'm like, Jesus, how long did it take you to film this thing, for crying out loud? So it was fun. I watched the whole thing, and it was just a kind of for fun thing. And I've sent Phil some goodies as well, and yeah, I like Phil. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He seems like very good people, and the hobby needs more of that. It really does.
Yep.
So yeah, reach out to Phil if you're up in that area. They have those model get-togethers, and
yeah, and we'll post a link to their Facebook page. I think it's the Northwest Figure Modeler Association or Figure Modelers Association. And we'll throw that link up there if you want to link in and join. And if you're in the Northwest, Northern Oregon, Southern Washington area, get with these guys. They get together once in a while, and it's grown from 4 to
lots. It sounded
30
like
at one point at one time. And again, we've talked about it numerous times. I wish we could get something like that going here.
Definitely. Definitely. So yeah. All right, let's move on. Letters and corrections. As always, no corrections. We got everything right. Once again, 7 episodes and no mistakes. So
we thought we had a correction.
We thought we did, but we were wrong about having a correction. So maybe we did get something
right.
But
then I was wrong, and then I found out I was right.
So. But we do have a letter. We have a letter. And someone actually did what I asked to do.
And who could that letter have been from?
That person was Charlie Robson. And Charlie sent in one of his dream kits that he wants made. So I'm going to read what he said. He said, this bust in a quarter scale would complete me. Charles Bronson as Cheney from Hard Times 1975. The bust would be Bronson in front, Corbett in the back with the jacket. Actually be much like the Karloff Pierce bust that Mike just released. Forearms would be exaggerated just like the poster art. Feel free to share this on a future episode. So we did. We got a picture of the poster from Charlie, and this is what Charlie would like to see. I'm sure he's not the only one. So if there's any producers out there looking to make a bust that might sell, check it out. This is what Charlie wants. Make a boy's dream come true. Got that? All right. So that's our one letter. We did have a lot of good comments, people sending in what they would like to do in the YouTube channel. But again, as always, modelclubtv@gmail.com. You can send us emails. You can send us build-ups, send us letters, pictures, whatever. We'll share them in this crazy section when we don't have interview shows. And yeah, Scott, episode 7 is under our belt. You ready? He's still sleeping. All right. We'll see everybody next time on Model Club TV.
Thanks for watching.